call it F the hustle. I won't use the full word, but ultimately
hustle,
that
that's the word, isn't it?
Yeah, that hustle culture of how you describe it, that 5 o'clock you're out of bed, you've eaten had a protein shake, you've gone down the gym, and you choose to go into the office and other people choose not to. I only work 4 days, and my Wednesdays are now my well-being days, and it's absolutely a day that I dedicate to my well-being. Now, anybody that you talk to would say if you're growing 20 or 30% more year on year, then that's dangerous. And we were growing incredibly, just crazy amounts that we were turning over.
On this week's episode of The Engaging Marketeer, I am speaking with Gary Parsons, who is the founder of the Selfish Thinking Company. Now, that speaks to me on a level other companies have never spoken to me before, because I am, by admission, very, very selfish. Gary is very heavily involved in well-being and wellness within businesses and how businesses can do better for their employees and make them better versions of themselves. He is also a member of the Professional Speakers Association, so I'm going to be talking to Gary about professional speaking, speaking on stages, and how he gets paid the big bucks for doing the big talks. I'm quite interested in what you brand as the Selfish Thinking Company for leaders that need to be a bit more selfish. I think that appeals to me on a personal level because I consider myself, and I've been told I'm quite selfish, and I have zero empathy. So what exactly is a selfish leader, and why is it a good thing?
Yeah, let's jump into what people think a selfish leader is first, actually, because so many people hear it as a bad word, don't they? And you're saying you're selfish, and it feels quite, when we've got the guilt that's attached to it, it feels like a really bad thing that we don't care about anybody else, that we are so self-absorbed or egotistical. It's all about me and what I do, and nobody else matters. How I look at the word selfish is to take that guilt away, ultimately, and especially in 2026, when we are more open about well-being, we look after ourselves a lot better than we used to, or we're certainly more conscious than we used to be. Bringing that word selfish to the forefront of our minds, for me, it means prioritizing ourselves, prioritizing our mental health, prioritizing our well-being, and I'm sure we'll get into lots and lots of descriptions of it, but ultimately, when you are growing a business, whether you are in a business as a leader or you are growing a business as a founder of that business, or you're a parent, or you're a family, wherever you might be inside or outside of business, if you think selfishly and you look after yourself and prioritize yourself, then ultimately you are giving yourself the ability to be able to show up for others, have the energy on those days where otherwise you might fail very quickly. It's all about building up that capacity ultimately, so you can be there and be that amazing person that you want to be and support those other people in a sustainable way. And I think that's the most important word, sustainable.
Right. So most people, when they start a business for themselves, there's various reasons they do it. It could be that they don't want to be employed by anyone, have anyone tell them what to do, which is a common reason, and then you end up with clients telling you what to do. Or it could be that they want to be masters of their own destiny, or maybe they've just been made redundant and they don't want to have to go through that again. But you set up your own business, you end up making, as you say, lots of sacrifices. That you sacrifice the time, you sacrifice time with your family, you end up working late, you end up getting into work early, you work weekends, you end up not paying yourself, because if you've got staff or suppliers, you have to pay them first. Are these the kind of mistakes you're talking about, or not mistakes? These are the kind of situations people get themselves in what you want them to basically not do that, to make sure they are the ones that are the priority.
Yeah, 100%. And I know I talk about leaders and founders because I really want to point out that there's one that owns a business and they've got a lot more control than the other person. That may be that they are mid-level management or they are a senior leader on the board. Ultimately, there's different environments that are there. But the challenge and the trouble that most people have, and I was doing some work on it earlier, it's a big session I'm running, is boundaries. That's the first place where we start. When we start a business, we blur those boundaries because, of course, we're wearing every hat that we need to as an individual running that business, whether it's marketing, finance, sales, whatever it might be. Those boundaries don't exist. You want it to be successful. So that 9 to 5 doesn't exist for you. And so many of those boundaries get blurred very quickly. And yeah, that happens in businesses as well, when people need to show their team that they are committed, they're performing. They feel like they need to then show up by doing extra hours. And it's we've always heard this phrase, don't we, that it's work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And this is what I am trying to say ultimately, is that actually, yes, it's great that you're showing that level of commitment. That's amazing. But go and work smarter, not harder. And that, yeah, boundaries is the very first big area that people make those mistakes.
I don't think social media and, I want to say, business gurus, people that you see talking about business, these guys that have TikTok channels and Instagram and LinkedIn, and they're talking about, if you're not up at 5 a.m. Filling in your gratitude manual and then going for a walk and then doing 3 hours of reading and then at 9 a.m. you've already done 7 hours of work and then you stay up till 8 a.m. Whatever it is, these kind of people I don't think help, because they're teaching people that you need to work harder and harder and harder and longer to get results. So what's your thought on the way they influence people that go into business?
Yeah, do you know, I was interestingly going to start a marketing campaign last year. We'll call it F the hustle. I won't use the full word, but ultimately
hustle, that's the word, isn't it?
Yeah, that hustle culture of how you describe it, that 5 o'clock you're out of bed, you've eaten had a protein shake, you've gone down the gym. All of these things are great, actually. Yes, should you be going to the gym? That's a great way of switching off and not just waking up and going straight into work on your phone or straight into the office. Yeah, it's a great way of balancing your well-being by doing those other things. But, albeit exaggerated, you talked about doing all those things before 9 o'clock. And that's a real toxic culture that we can have there, where ultimately it's questioning people's commitment to their businesses, to their employers that they might work for. If you're not doing all of those things, how committed are you? And again, it comes back to, yes, that might sound great for the first. I mean, I'd probably die on the first day, let's be honest here, if I did anything like that. But that is hard. That is hard to sustain for a week, a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Now I'm going to add some extra things in, Darren, into your life where you've just had a diagnosis of some ill health, or you've just lost a loved one, or you're having a particularly tough period within the business. How can you sustain and maintain those routines whilst being under so much pressure elsewhere? How is that possible? It's not, ultimately, is the answer. And you are pulling yourself in every direction already as a leader. And one of the things I talk about is leading under pressure, and that responsibility and that pressure to perform. And to have all of that on top of you, that you should be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, is just, it's too much. It's too much. And surprise, surprise, we see these people that are burning out. But I'll just go back to your very point, is those influencers, those people that are talking about that online. I saw an article in the Times. It was sent to me actually in the Times a couple of weekends ago, where it was a boss of a very high profile company that we'll all know in the UK, and he was saying that he doesn't believe in work-life balance culture. It just doesn't sound right. Maybe I've been in it too long, but it sounds so wrong to say that out loud. That is a guy that is going off on holiday and continuing to check his mobile and continuing to work. That's not a holiday. That's just a different place to work, a different environment around you. So those people might say it, but how many people do you hear where they talk about the negative sides? And most importantly for me, when I started on this journey, was to not only tell my story, but get other people to come out of the woodwork and talk about times in their life. I've interviewed a multi-millionaire, a very, very successful guy who, sadly, in a bit of a trigger warning around mental health, that he got to the point where he sold his business, and that same day had an attempt on his own life. and it could, luckily he's still with us, but no, we nearly lost him. So there are people out there that aren't telling that story that really need to, because there's a lot more people out there that are struggling. I think those are the voices that we need to hear more, not from a doom and gloom level, but a reality.
I mean, that kind of attitude of working harder and harder and harder. I think my dad used to say stuff like that. It comes from a generational thing that if you want something, you work harder for it. You do overtime. You work 6 days a week, 7 days a week. You save up and you buy what you want to buy. And it's just not the way the world works anymore. And then you get people like, you didn't want to mention the boss of a company, but I'm going to mention Alan Sugar. Alan Sugar has famously said time and time again that people working from home is a scam. People who work from home are dossing. They're sat on their arse. They're watching TV. They're not doing anything. They need to get back in the office. Get back in the office, because that's the only way you're going to be productive. I mean, pure coincidence, Alan Sugar owns a lot of office space. And I don't think in any way he is incentivized to get people back in the office because he'll earn more money from it. I'm sure that's total coincidence, but get back in the office. And they don't seem to understand this work-life balance, that people can work from home. We can be just as productive working from home. COVID proved that. We can do that. And what's your take on that kind of attitude, in that draconian people should be in the office from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, working, toiling away and not being allowed to do anything outside of what their boss tells them to do?
Yeah, you touched on it and briefly on there, and I see it, and I'll call it out that our economy is built on lots of people owning lots of property, and I'm sure that Lord Alan Sugar probably also has lots of retail property that he rents out, and as many successful entrepreneurs have. I've got good friends who own lots of residential properties that they let out, and commercial properties. So when you're thinking about that, ultimately, where are those businesses that have modeled their revenue and their growth on buying more property? Where are they going to end up if everybody works from home? And where are the sandwich shops? We've seen a real change of dynamics in the high street based on what happened in COVID. And only recently, with and when this goes out, I don't know, but with everything going on with the Iran war this year, we've seen a lot of countries where they have ultimately seen electricity prices where they've increased. Oil obviously has a massive impact on gas production, etc., etc. So there's lots of countries now that have said, how do we deal with this? Well, actually, public sector, some governments are saying employees need to work from home. So again, we're seeing that they're going back to that, but they don't believe in it. But they're going back to that default where they're saying people need to work from home. I mean, I'm a bit indifferent on it, because of course that then puts the burden on the individual, who's then going to have higher energy costs at home, and they're already being strangled by cost of living in other places for food. So food and heating are definitely a two primary basis. But I think to ask me, if you're asking me, is it important that we have the ability to work from home? Yes, I really do believe in that. But I also believe that we also need to have a place where we can go to. You may or may not be a big soap opera fan, but on the big coronation streets in the East Enders, they've all got the Rovers Return to go to. They've all got the Queen Vic or Rolls Rolls around the corner. There's a place where that community always gathers around. And I think that's really important at organizations. And having worked in HR people consultancy before I launched into this business, I've since sold that business. But certainly when I was working in there, one of the things that I was hearing was, how do we keep engagement going, Gary? And I kept coming back to, it's great that you're really embracing work from home, and some of them weren't, but you still need to have that place that people can come back to, that they can connect in person with each other, whether that's a yearly conference, a quarterly conference a company might do, whatever you can do, that physical connection of employees seeing each other in person has a massive difference, and I think that's really important. But balance, I'm going to use that word early on, balance, I use it every day in the work that I do as a mentor particularly, but it's just about balance and giving people the option, the permission to be able to have that balance in their lives. and empower them.
I get that whole meeting place thing, somewhere for people to congregate, and I've heard it said many times that if people went to the pub as often as they do on Coronation Street, they would all be alcoholics.
Absolutely.
Because people that just work in the knicker factory, they're in the pub every single day drinking. They would be alcoholics. We have a policy in our place where you're in the office 2 days a week. And one of those 2 days is always a Tuesday, and then you can pick one of the other days, whichever's good for you, and you work from home 3 days a week. Some people are in the office 5 days a week because they don't want to work from home. Some people are in the office 3 days a week because it's better for them. But 2 days a week is the minimum, and it allows them to work from home. I never do the work from home myself because I personally don't like it. I don't like the isolation. As you said, I need to feed off other people, which I think technically makes me an extrovert, although I don't feel that way.
Absolutely.
So I understand what you're saying there, that people need somewhere to go, because if you are just isolated constantly, then it is going to have a real negative impact on your mental health. But by the same time, if you are able to work from home, you shouldn't be told that you have to be in the office 5 days a week. That this is the way it is, just because somebody wants to sell office space, or just because somebody has a draconian way of this is how business should be. Everybody should be in cubicles in the office and work like that. Can you see a future where everyone's going to understand this and that we will have this hybrid working across all sectors?
Very good question. Do I see a future? I think we
do we
are
even
going
have
to
a
see...
future now? Do we even have a future?
Yeah, we won't go that dark so quickly, but yeah, absolutely. Yes, that will change. That will change. I think it's just a case of time when that will change, because I talked about balance, but choice is a big part of that as well. And you choose to go into the office, and other people choose not to. And especially the way that we look at equality and equity within the world of business now, within workplaces, and I think certainly over the last couple of years, that's had a big shake-up in terms of the more American policy that's led that. But the people that need the choice, need the ability to work from home more, that can't be forced into the office, as long as we can adapt ourselves to make sure that we are including those people. And I point this out really clearly, I'm very social justice point of view, is that presenteeism, let me get that word out, is a big failure of a lot of businesses. There are some very talented, very capable, very able people within businesses, and the systems and some of the leaders within businesses regard promotions, the future of their business, needing to have a presenteeism model attached to it, and they will miss out on some extremely good talent. So I think there's very much a mindset challenge there to be able to deal with that. So yes, in answer to your question, it's definitely going to be happening in the future, whether they like it or not, as we see that generational change. Whether it will happen within the next generation, I don't know. I feel like we've gone 10 steps forward and 15 back at one point.
Really? You think it's that bad?
I feel like in many ways that is the case, but then equally it depends on who you speak to and what you read. And there's a lot of businesses that are still very consciously pushing a DEI agenda, is the wrong word, but very much pushing a DEI focused initiative within businesses, because they recognize the difference it has, and that cognitive variation across a business is really important as well. So yeah, I think those businesses that keep embracing it and keep shouting about it will see the biggest difference and and certainly the competitive advantage, I think, anyway.
Yeah, you've got other businesses, and I know of quite a few that are doing this, are going completely the other way and are actually trialing 4-day work weeks. Which is becoming a big movement, certainly in the UK. I don't know about America or worldwide, but certainly in the UK, and certainly in our industry, in digital marketing. There's a lot of marketing companies that are shouting about the fact that they're doing 4-day work weeks. And that's not for extended hours for teams as well. That's working 4 days and essentially getting something like, an extra 50-odd days off a year, whatever it may be. If that becomes the norm, or that becomes the way companies are heading, the companies that don't do that, the companies that say, we want 5 days, we want 9 to 5, or we want 8 till 6, and we want everybody in the office, surely they are going to have a real dearth of staff. They're going to have a real dearth of quality, because nobody's going to want to do that. They're going to want to go to the companies that are embracing what's best for people's well-being, people's mental health, and best for creativity.
Yeah, it's recognizing that as well. One of the things that I did when I stepped away from the business that had grown, and there was a lot of us in that business, my co-director and ops director, and all the different teams that we had in my business. So one of the things that when I started to work for myself, and very much it is me, I've got an amazing PA that looks after me. I've got a friend who helps with marketing and bits like that. But yes, I am the only full-time employee, if you like, in the business. And one of the things that I consciously did is to only work 4 days. And my Wednesdays are now my well-being days. And it's absolutely a day that I dedicate to my well-being. There's no real structure in it. The one thing that I try and do on a Wednesday is, I loan a horse. So one of the things that I consciously did
you loan a horse.
So he's mine on a Wednesday, basically. Is to put it into layman's terms,
okay.
though. Yeah. So on a Wednesday,
that's the first time I've ever heard anyone say that. But
absolutely, he's. I call him mine, but I do share him with other people, so technically he's not mine.
Is this like a timeshare of a horse?
Say again, sorry.
Is it like a timeshare of a horse?
Yeah, maybe that's a really good way of describing it. Yeah, absolutely. I contribute to the costs of him. He's in the stables, and they use him for lessons, and he's mine on a Wednesday.
Wow. Okay. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. And I've got to say, the really lovely thing, especially when we've got the brighter months of the year and the nicer, not necessarily the warmer months of the year, but the nice bright months of the year, is I can get on him. We can go out. He's so laid back. He's such a great character as well, that we go out on our own or in groups into the woods nearby where the stables are, and you have that connection between not only the horse but nature. And one of the things that I really enjoy, and if anyone's thinking about what do, I love this idea of doing a Wellbeing Wednesday. Yeah, go out and go horse riding, go and do something that you enjoy. I'll tell you now, the one thing that you can't do when you're horse riding is let your mind wander of all the things that you've got to do at work tomorrow, because you need to stay on that horse, and it's really important that you're keeping absolute alertness and attention to what is going on, albeit with Merlin he probably wouldn't even notice, and there's days where I daydream and so does he, trips over his own shadow. But just being out there and being on a horse where you've got to focus on what you're doing, that is absolute escapism. It's meditation in its own way, really, to just escape from the world and just be in nature. It's fantastic. So I'm absolutely all for the 4-day working, and I think if more of us could do that and switch off, as I said earlier about the director that I think he's CEO of a very big brand in the UK. He's saying he doesn't switch off. He doesn't believe in the work-life balance world. Well, actually, go and do it. Go and try it. Go and switch off. And I wonder what difference he would see if he went and had a Wellbeing Wednesday and got on a horse and went off for a couple of hours. I think that would make a big difference. And no, I'm not a qualified neuroscientist or whatever, but there's so much research out there that shows the benefit and the difference it makes when we fully switch off, and then we come back to our desks, our offices, the tasks and projects that we've had in front of us, and the difference that it can make, because we are not overwhelmed with the amount of decisions that we've been making for the last couple of days. We see massive improvement around the decisions that we make and the quality of the ones that we make around that. So it's proven. Why not do it? Why not use the science and say, I need a Wednesday off?
I love that. I've never been horse riding. It's something I've always liked the idea of. I think I'm probably a bit too heavy at the moment for horse riding. I have looked at it at centre parks, and I am over the weight limit for centre parks, so I can't do that.
I know my school was not too far. When we spoke earlier in the year, my school was not too far around the corner from where you were. So if you need to, I can point out a riding school you can go to in Eastham and places like that you
Oh
can
yeah,
go
that's not
to.
far at all. No.
Yeah, the Wirral Riding Club, one of
Yeah.
my family friends goes to it. So yeah, absolutely. I'll
Well,
take maybe when I'm over, I'll and visiting family, I'll drag you out and we'll go and find a horse for you.
definitely consider it on. Consider it on. Yeah, brilliant.
Do it.
And I, as you say, I love the idea of taking a day for well-being a week as well. 'Cause going back to what we talked about earlier, there are so many people that brag about the hours they work as though it's a good thing. You know, I work all these hours, therefore I'm hustling, I'm doing well. And it always amazes me that they're doing that, because that's not a way to live. That's not a positive. If you have to work all those hours, if you have to be on your phone constantly when you're on holiday, you've not built a business.
It's
You've
that
got a
classic,
job.
isn't it, where you see employees and the employees are saying, "Oh, I need to stay behind to catch up," and you sit there and you think to yourself, "Who's doing really well here? The employee that walks out at 5 o'clock, having done all their tasks and hit their target, or the employee that stays for 2 hours longer? Like, who's the best person here? The one that's doing more hours, or the one that went out at 5 o'clock today?" Like, yeah, there's somebody that's doing a better job here, and I'll let you decide which one that is.
Yeah, it's because, I mean, when we first started Engage Web 17 years ago now, I was doing a lot of work, admittedly, because when you start a business, you have to. It's difficult. I was starting 7, 8 a.m. I was working 8 p.m. I was working Sundays. But as you grow and you scale a business, and scale is the important thing, you get the right people in to do the right jobs. You then don't start doing what they're doing. You do other things to bring them in. You get people in who are better than you at certain jobs, who are quicker than you at certain jobs, who are cheaper than you at certain jobs. There's no point getting people in if you're just going to keep doing the same thing they're doing, because then you're all busy together and nobody's really growing. So we scaled it. And now, when people ask me, I just had a one-to-one before this podcast. When people ask me, so what do you do? I tell them, and they think I'm joking. Nothing. I do absolutely nothing. I do no work whatsoever. I do diddly squat. I gave a stat at my networking group recently where we've built, in the last 3 years, I think it is, we built 125, 130 websites. I built none of them. I don't even know half of them have even been created. That's the way it should be. That's what scaling a business is all about. It's about getting people in the right positions to do the right stuff so that you can do the things that you want to do, the things that you are good at, the things that are going to help you grow, the things that are going to help you become a better version of you.
Yeah. And how much I took the word empowerment comes into my mind, and engagement. How much more engaged are those individuals in your business, and how much more empowered do they feel when you aren't saying, "Oh, I do that, I'll do that, I'll do that," and they're actually getting a chance to do it. And one of the workshops that I run, as you know, I do lots of training, and I say this on stage as well when I'm at conferences, is that there are people in your businesses that, like you've just said, are better than you at doing things, and just giving them a little bit. There's a little decision matrix that I always use, and it's really, really simple. But there's 2 questions on there. Should it be on their job description, and can they do it? And if they can do it and it should be on their job description, why the hell aren't they doing that job? Why are you still doing it?
Yeah.
So, and actually, part of that, I want to say it should be on their job description. They can probably do it. Well, that's your job as a leader within a business, whether you own the place or whether you are leading a team or at a board level. Your job is to make sure that your people in your business are able to do that work for you. And that could be not managing them, but giving them a sense of direction, as maybe of a more middle management level, coaching them, working through, giving them questions that they haven't thought about, being there to challenge their thinking. That is your job, to be there to steer the business or to mentor, to coach those individuals until they can independently do those jobs that should be on their job description. And it's a surefire way of getting to success, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, you just said the golden word there, engagement. Our company is Engage Web. This is the Engaging Marketeer podcast. Engagement is what it's all about, and empowerment is critical as well. You need to empower people to make decisions, to take ownership, because if they think that you're going to micromanage them, go in and say, oh, you've done that wrong, then they're not going to make the decisions. They're just going to wait for you to do it for them. Let them make the decisions. Let them take ownership. Let them do it. I always be wary of those micromanagers that say, I will not let my staff do that. I've got to be there to do that. I've got to take that decision. I've got some rental properties, and I had a letting agent managing those many years ago. And he had, I think, 2 or 3 staff in his business, but he would not let them do any payments to landlords. He was the one that did all the payments to the landlords. And if he wasn't around, the payments didn't get made, which meant as a landlord, I didn't get paid quite a few times. And I'd end up chasing, and I'd phone up and I'd speak to one of the ladies in the office and she said, oh, well, he's not here today, so we can't make the payment, because he will not empower anybody else to do it. He would not trust them. That's not how you grow a business. That's how you get
not
ulcers.
How you keep customers either. I'm sure you probably thought maybe I'll leave.
It definitely wasn't, because I did leave. Yeah. So it infuriates me when people try to run businesses like that, and they try to micromanage stuff, and they will not let them do the things that they are good at. They try to make sure they do it all themselves. You have to
really
give
good friend.
power.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, a really good friend of mine, Serena, she talks about leaders that abdicate responsibility, and that isn't what you are that I am asking. What you're asking that leader to do in his business, what you're asking them to do is still hold that responsibility, but maybe that accountability, but certainly work with somebody else to take that role on, to have some responsibility in doing that. And there's so many systems, especially with finances now. There's so many things that can be put in place where you can give limits to people. You can get them to do all but one tiny part of that process. It's just, it fascinates me when I sit down with, as I do with leaders and business owners particularly, where they just take on so many duties and are really scared of giving them away. In fact, only this week I've worked with somebody and she said, maybe I need to stop doing all the ordering for all the stock that we have for the shops that she owns. Maybe I need to get somebody else to do it. And the challenge was because she spent about £3,500 more. To put it into context, about £10,000. So she spent about 30% more than what she would normally spend on stock. And it was a real moment for learning to say, why did you spend more money on that particular month? And is that something you could build into a policy? And I'm not talking about a 20-page policy. It could have 20 words on it, and that would be absolutely fine to say, if X equals this, then get my authorization. If it doesn't, put the order through. If you're just ordering the stuff that we order every month because we've sold out, just get that stock ordered. But if you're spending £3,500 more, I probably want to know why. And I just would like a bit of an oversight of that. That's absolutely fine for now. In the future, you'll overcome that as well. But that's absolutely fine as a first stage to do.
Yeah.
But and I talk about founders particularly because I was one, but we hold on to our baby very emotively, and we don't want to let go because of that. And I've been there, I've done it. We were, I guess, just for some context, if that's okay, just to mention, is the business that I had in 2017. We were growing, we were turning over just over 1 million, so about 1.2 million. We were growing about, I always talk about 250%. I think technically it was 235, 240% year on year, which we're growing. Now, anybody that you talk to would say if you're growing 20 or 30% more year on year, then that's dangerous. And we were growing incredibly, just crazy amounts that we were turning over. And I got to the point where I was struggling to even get out of bed, walk around the supermarket. My energy levels were just massively depleted because even though I had a co-director, I felt like I had to look after everything. I had to do everything. And that was a real challenge for me and a real wake-up moment when I sat down with my doctor and said, I don't feel well. And very quickly after excuse me, after diagnosis, And talking with that doctor, I very quickly found out that I needed to, well, that realization to say, I need to stop doing what I'm doing and I need to start giving all of this away to this very capable team around me. And, that the difference that it made was massive. And actually, I think it was something like year on year, we went from 1.2 million to 800,000. So dropped in our turnover, but we made more of a profit because we were doing things in a better, smarter way. So, with the team around me. So it just goes to show that you can't do everything on your own because you will burn out.
Yeah. And it's strange when you see business owners, not just business owners, you get managers as well, and even employees in businesses that they try to maintain or try to keep control of a lot of tasks themselves because they're possibly worried that someone's going to replace them, worried someone's going to take their job, that they're going to lose their value to their business. And they take great pride in the fact that when they go away, when they're not there, things fall apart. And they'll go, oh, yeah, I can see the business has all gone to shit when I've been away for a week. You clearly need me, as though that's a good thing. And it's not a good thing. If you are a manager or an owner of a business and you go away and things go wrong, that's on you. That's your fault because you have not made sure that the people in the business can manage without you being there. And one of the things we've got, you touched upon this earlier about people having different skills within the business. We've created what's called a skills matrix in our business. So
Brilliant.
Every single task that people do within their job is listed on this skills matrix, and we make sure that different members of staff are cross-trained in different skills so that there isn't only one person that does one particular thing, and that if somebody's going to be away, we make sure that somebody else is trained in that particular skill so that we know it's going to be covered. And I've mentioned this before on a podcast, and it seemed to be revolutionary to the person I was talking to. So they'd never heard of this before. I take it you've come across this yourself.
Yeah, massively. And I used to have an employee called Matt. He won't mind me name checking him. So he was effectively like our office manager. He was he did everything. He was the glue that held everything together.
He sounds like our Alan.
Yeah, he was great, brilliant. Came into the business as an apprentice and saw everything as it grew and saw all the issues that went along the way. And just as you said it, I remember one day sitting down with him and saying, this has happened. And he said, oh yeah, normally I do that, but I was away that day. It didn't get fixed. And there was just a few employees and I can't quite remember what they were doing, but ultimately they were making a few mistakes. And he was the person that silently went in and fixed it. They didn't know they made a mistake and we didn't know we fixed it. So there's a lot of those stealth employees that, all for good reason and good intention, are going out there and making things just beautifully, come together and putting people in a really good light as well. And it's, again, it's not a bad thing that somebody sits there and says, I'm struggling with this, or what, that age old. And again, it's that mindset, that change of ways where we look at employees and if we say, oh, Darren, you're not very good at sending those emails out to those clients when you do those confirmations, that's great for me to know that you're not very good at that. You probably would think as an employee, and certainly historically we see lots of employees where they think they're going to get a sack or they're going to get disciplined because of it. I see that as a real good opportunity because I then sit there and say, great, we've seen an area where you need to improve. What can we do? I mean, these days it'd probably be AI to do something like that, but what systems can we put in place? What training do we need to put in place to ensure that process doesn't go wrong? And we were taught, as a business, I mentioned we were a staff or a people consultancy, as we called it. Parts of our business, that was a pay and reward team. So they were processing payroll for 100 different companies, the biggest company being 1,200 employees. So some real important, one of our clients that we looked after had 20 employees, and I'll not say who they are, of course, but they had a higher payroll value than the one that had 1,200 employees because of the salaries that were going through that. And process was so incredibly important with that. If we didn't do that one thing, and luckily the thing I'm talking about wasn't payroll related, But if he hadn't, if it was payroll related and Matt came in and saved a day on that particular project or client scenario, that could be that an employee gets massively overpaid, that something's wrong for the employer. That could be thousands of pounds that costs not only them, but potentially us as a business. So it's so important that we see it.
That's really common. I see that where employees make mistakes. I've made mistakes before. And your first instinct when you make a mistake is to cover your tracks. If I've made a mistake, I can't possibly let anybody find out that I've done that, because I could be fired. I could be in trouble. I could be disciplined. Oh no, I need to cover that mistake and make sure nobody knows that I've done it. And when you eventually find out that someone's done that, it's a much bigger problem than it would have been had they just owned up to it at the fact. Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
It's how you deal with those mistakes that differentiates you. So you'll make mistakes with clients, you'll make mistakes with employees will make mistakes with others. But it's what you do that makes you different. The customer service from companies that make mistakes, if somebody sends you a billing error, or if your broadband gets cut off for 3 hours, it's how they deal with it that matters. If they try and wash their hands of it and pretend it wasn't their fault, that's not good. If they own up to it and say, yep, we did that, here's a £30 credit on your account, fantastic. That's the difference, and that's what I think a lot of people don't really understand.
Yeah, and a really good friend, a podcast, I can't remember the name of it. A friend sent me an episode for a podcast a few months back, and it really spoke to me that, and in a different context really, but it goes with what you're saying there, is showing up is great and being there and doing something, but trying, making an effort, go and get out of your way to show somebody that you care about something is worth so much more to us as individuals. I think he was a leading psychologist somewhere, and he said, ultimately, yeah, you walking through the door every day is great, but hearing about everything you've done to try to get through the door and you haven't made it is worth so much more. Yeah. And you're right, it's our behaviors, our value base, and how we align our actions to our value base that makes a huge difference. And yeah, I've made a mistake today, or this morning already, and that's absolutely fine. And the amount of mistakes I've made in business is great from a mentor point of view, because you can help other people to avoid making those mistakes. Of course you can, but yeah, I've had mistakes that have lost me a lot of money. I've also had mistakes that have made me lots of money, by the way, where I've done something and I've spoken to the wrong person and then ended up having a really good conversation, and they've gone, oh, this sounds like something that could work really well for us. Can you pop in and have a conversation? And it does work, and there's good sides and bad sides to mistakes. So yeah, really own your mistakes. And I think going back to that point that you're making, really, is that we own our mistakes, and how we deal with it is a massive difference. But yeah, we are human. Yeah. And I said a lot earlier on is that, and I say this not to invalidate what anyone's going through, but we are just normal people going through normal things in our lives. And when we are trying to be the best of the best, it is okay to say you're struggling, that you've made a mistake, that you shouldn't have walked through the door that day, that you are struggling as a leader. Because if you're modeling behaviors of that Iron Maiden kind of, that I am invincible, I am a computer, nothing ever goes, I mean, ironically, things do go wrong with computers, but nothing ever goes wrong with me, then how do you or whoever as an employee in my business look at me and say, I've made a mistake, or something is going wrong at the moment and I need your support? And I believe a phrase, and I share this with everybody, and hopefully it makes a difference to you, and hello to everyone that's listening to make a difference to you as well, that I believe that there's always a reason and never an excuse. I don't want people to excuse me, because that is a mistake that I've made, and I'll own it and I'll deal with it, and that's fine. But I want you to have some compassion with it, which is why I say always a reason and never an excuse. I want you to understand why it's happened, and I want you to work with me. And that's all I want from you in life. And I just want you to understand what I'm going through. And if you can do that with your employees, if you're as an employee, you can do that of your leaders, then how beautiful is that? How productive is that? How great and successful can that business be when we're working on that basis?
I love that. That's a great phrase. Yeah. So that the moral there is own your mistakes, because everybody makes them. It's how you deal with them that matters. And to be honest, as you were saying then, I remembered I did have back when I was an employee, I had a boss who used to make a lot of mistakes because he would jump to conclusions a lot. And I remember one instance, he burst into the office and he absolutely tore someone a strip, shouting and screaming at them. And he was wrong. He just got completely the wrong end of the stick.
I would say.
And he realised that afterwards, but he took them outside and apologised to them in private after shouting at them in front of the whole office. He didn't...
public apology needed.
Exactly. A public apology was needed. So,
and I think, isn't that interesting? As leaders, we feel, there's lots of people still feel, should I say, and actually the great thing is lots of people are changing. I don't have to do much work to do this, which is great, but there are lots of leaders out there still that feel that is the right thing to do, that they can go in and they can argue in front of somebody, and whether they're right or wrong, to go in and show those behaviors in a business. Yes, it's massively disengaging, but I think and a lot of the work that I do, and I do this more from a personal point of view, and I don't know if we'll have time to touch on it with so I had facial palsy when I was 18. So only in the last 5 years, I've been talking about me going through that, and I spent 20 years not talking about it whatsoever on the mask that I'm wearing, and ultimately the message here really is that pretending to be somebody else and wearing that mask. And there's many leaders that feel like they need to wear the mask of, I'm strong if I don't admit that something's gone wrong, that I've made a mistake. I'm strong if I don't admit that I've made a mistake. In that example that you've just given, that's what people see the word as strong. And the message that I'm trying to get out there, and hopefully I think we've already done it today, actually, Darren, is that there are people in businesses now where they are starting to realize, and I say lots are already there already, that they are starting to realize that showing the vulnerability, showing their human side, and I don't mean vulnerable as in like, this is where you can come and take me out, as in a bad way, but just showing that we are human, that we make mistakes, that we need to show compassion to each other. That is such an engaging quality. That is such a strength as a leader. If you walk in and say, bear with me today, guys, actually, I've just had some bad news, or I've just had a massive argument with my other half, and so the decisions I make this week, bear with me, it might take me a little bit longer to do that. Again, always a reason and never an excuse. We want leaders to show their true vulnerable side, because then as employees, again, we don't want to be excused, but we want them, just those leaders, to give us a bit more compassion when we are struggling ourselves. And those models of behavior go both ways.
A phrase I've kept thinking now twice while you've been talking, and it's a stupid phrase because it's from a film and I can't even remember the film. It was somebody explaining pretty much what you just said, but they phrased it as, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time.
I love it. I'll have to Google it. It's not SpongeBob SquarePants or something like that.
No, it was before SpongeBob. Because I know, because there was a response to it. Somebody else looked at him and went, I don't. I don't know what stupid film it was. Anyway, let's move on from pants.
We'll have a look. Maybe we'll get someone to put some comments or email in for you.
It was really stupid.
What was that film?
It might have been something like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 or something. It was something weird like that. You've mentioned... it could have been. Yeah, it could have been Wolf of Wall Street. It was before that. It's much older, so it might have been Wall Street, the original Wall Street. So yeah, it's the kind of thing Michael Douglas would say. You've talked about public speaking, so you do public speaking. You're a member of the PSA. What's that done for your business?
Yeah, absolutely, and regional president this year as well. Now,
congratulations.
Thank you. In some circumstances,
I don't know.
Yes, so a little bit in some ways. So the sad story is that I was only meant to be vice president this year on our regional president sadly became unwell and passed away very quickly within a matter of hours.
Wow.
So I'm trying to find a way to celebrate it, but it's a really hard thing to do on balance. But having spoken to his wife, she absolutely told me how important the Professional Speaking Association was, and it's a huge honor to be able to champion and talk about speakers. So yeah, celebrating in a weird circumstances this year of becoming regional president for the East Midlands. And yeah, as you know, well, you may not know, we're at the time of recording, we are 14 regions strong across the UK and Ireland. And remind me of the question that you asked me, but yeah, it's been a big part of my life for the last 2 years. It's been incredibly helpful. I've learned, talking about mistakes, I've learned lots of mistakes that I've made, speaking competitions that I would say had failed miserably at. I think I did quite well, actually, but just lots and lots of things that I've done.
Because often you're your own worst critic when you do stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially when you ask for feedback, and the way in which I get my feedback, I ask for, and we do it on a peer group. We do member showcases, where we ask for feedback in the room. And one of them was just standing in front of a projector. The most stupidest thing. I'd been doing lots of training with a professional speaking coach, and we were talking about the movement of the room. So I was so focused on using the room in the right way, I forgot the big screen behind me that was blocking the view of it. And it was just as, other than that, actually, everybody loved it, and that was great. So yeah, it's been a huge part of my life. In year one, I went out and did a massive gig with a huge regulator in the UK, I shall say, and it's been great, just going from different clients to different ways of getting involved in the world. It's talking to a few people in the US as well. I met the president of the Maldives Professional Speaking Association.
Wow.
So always a good connection to have if you want to visit the Maldives. So
on a tax deductible trip as well, because it's a business expense.
Absolutely. So yeah, my aim is to ultimately, and I will say, by the way, I said no to being regional vice president to the region last year, and I walked away. And we all have it, some self-limiting beliefs. I've been there, been a leader, thought I didn't want to do it before, had my own version of that, and said, do I want to do it again? But then after a few different bits and a few events, I sat down and said, and you'll laugh at this, I went to our national conference, picked up the phone to Mal, who asked me to be vice president, and said, if it's okay, I've changed my mind, and I completely understand if you don't want me to be your vice president anymore, that's fine. But I've changed my mind. I'd love to be your vice president, and I'd love to become regional president. And in the next 5 to 10 years, I'd love to be national president. And he said, okay, Gary, that's quite a change of mind. And yeah, that's great. So that's my longer term aim. In the next 5 to 10 years, I will become what we call a PSA wide president, so across the UK and Ireland, to look after it. And it's a great step in the right direction. It's opened so many doors, to use that cliche. It really has. And just the relationships and the support and people around me, it's been amazing.
So you said you did a big talk, and you didn't want to mention who it was you did a big talk for. Was that a paid talk, or was that a free talk, and did you get business from it?
Yeah, so that was a very lucrative paid talk for...
I saw your eyes light up then when you said that. Very lucrative paid talk.
Absolutely. I think I was only 6 months from joining the Professional Speaking Association. I mean, just for context here, so my business started in 2009, that I had previously, and I was still a non-exec director in that business at that point. And of course, as you do as a leader in a business anyway, I'd gone out and spoken at lots of Chamber of Commerce events, and I was very used to getting up and speaking at events. But it's very different when you become a professional speaker and you see it in an entirely different light. And I am even more my worst critic now than I ever was, because I know what I should have done and what I never used to do 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And yeah, that client, it was a leadership conference. And I spoke about my own journey through mental health in 2017 with my severe depression, aligned and very much contrasting next to the success of my business, to make sure that they could see that, and talked about how we need to prioritize our mental health and well-being. And it was amazing. They fed me. I had 3 different desserts because I'm one of these, well, not a fussy eater, but I'm vegan. And they said, we don't know what you like, so we made you this, this, and this. 2 of them were chocolate, so I was happy with that. Oreo brownie cheesecake thing. So fed me. That was it. Off I went and went home and sent my invoice. And that was a great conference. But as a speaker, I am getting paid anywhere between 3,000 and 10,000 is the bracket that I speak within. Yes, absolutely. There are ones that I do for free. I'm a official campaigner for Changing Faces UK, who is a visible difference charity that support people that have got scars, burns, facial palsy like I have, lots of different things. I work with Facial Palsy UK as well. So they're the 2 charities that I speak publicly, do webinars, lots of camera work. I've got a campaign that's coming out this year for Face Equality Week. So that's just in all the filming and everything down in London with that a few weeks ago. And then a few where I might get some token amount. And it's, by the way, people that want to get into professional speaking, it's okay to speak for free. It's okay to speak for £100. That's absolutely fine. Professionally, absolutely, there's somewhere I will say no to unless they will pay me between £3,000 and £10,000. Fill the room with 100 HR managers that want to buy well-being workshops for their leaders and get mentoring in place. I probably won't charge anything at all for something like that. Maybe a little bit of money, some expenses. So, absolutely, it's what I want to make it, really.
Wow. Sounds like you're in a really good position, which is good considering your business is obviously well-being. That you are living a really good and happy life right now.
Absolutely, and thank you. And I want to say yes and celebrate, because absolutely I am. I wanted to say a really privileged position. I've worked really hard to get to where I am. I think that's really important, that we miss out sometimes from that self-doubt, that self-worth. Actually, I have worked incredibly hard, starting a business in a recession to now. I've done a lot of work, but yes, like anybody, I still have moments of doubt. I still come off stage and think, what on earth was that, Gary? You've done an awful job. And I get people coming up to me and saying it was great, or people coming up to me and saying, actually, that was really good. I would have loved it if you'd done X, Y, and Z. And that's absolutely fine. Yeah. Probably not in that moment, maybe a little while, an hour afterwards at least.
Yeah, let you cool down first. Let you cool down.
Yeah, not the first thing you say to me.
Let the adrenaline go first.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, ups and downs. I've got a sick relative. My granddad's unwell at the moment. Things are happening in our lives. That's absolutely fine to admit that we're struggling. So I've had a rocky couple of weeks with a bit of anxiety, a little bit of self-doubt that's rubbed into that as well. But actually, yes, on the highlight of things, I'm in a really good position where I'm getting paid to do something that I enjoy. How great is that? And I'm also switching off at the right points as well to go and do the things that are outside of this topic that I really am passionate about doing, that is my life's work, to go and do something that I can get on a horse and go and ride and go and do fun things like camping and stuff like that, that have nothing to do with what my mission is. And I have a really lovely balance in the world.
That sounds like a beautiful place to end it, because we are out of time now, although I could talk to you for longer. So as a final point, anyone listening to this thinking, I love what you say, I'd love to find out more, whether it's about the PSA or whether it's about using you and hiring you for speaking at their event, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you?
Good question. So anywhere that you can find me on social media, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever, it's Gary Parsons UK. So 1 R in Gary, Parsons on the end, so Gary Parsons UK. You can also go to my website, which I've conveniently got the correct address to go, garyparsons.uk, which works perfectly as well. So yeah, anywhere, and please just drop me a message. I really don't mind at all. I'm more than happy to drop a message back and forth and have conversations or online. I think the world is very closed sometimes, and if there's just something that's going on in your life right now, please just reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk to you. If I'm the only person that you'll ever reach out to, then we'll have a valuable conversation, and it will make a difference in your life and your organization as well.
Fantastic. Gary, thank you very much. I will put the links for the website and for the social media below the podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, something else, it's in the show notes below. Thank you very much for being a guest on the Engaging Marketeer.
Thank you. Thanks very much.